Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I am a teacher, tarot oracle card reader, singer and guitarist in the rock band Red Treasure. I know where that came from. And also a Dungeons and Dragons enthusiast. And I'm located in beautiful, it is sunny today. It was cloudy yesterday, but sunny, beautiful North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie Orlina. I am a transformational life coach, and I help people shift away from negative thinking. And today I'm in Carlsbad, California, and it's cloudy. It's been cool
Interesting.
the last few days.
Yeah, it was cloudy here in LA yesterday. We just made everybody who lives places where cloudy days last more than a day jealous. So I try not to do that living here, and it just keeps happening. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you're listening to the audio version on Spotify, the Apple Podcast app, CastBox, wherever you get your podcasts, thank you so much for watching us. If you're watching us on the Co-Creation Station YouTube channel, we post at this time, for those of you listening 200 years in the future, back here in 2022 when we're doing this live, or we're not doing it live, but recording it. We post right now, we're posting a brand new episode every Monday morning. And those of you 200 years from now are benefiting from the 3,000 episodes we have. Thank you so much for liking this episode, following us, subscribing to us, reviewing us on whatever your platform allows you to do. These all help other people find the show. We're very grateful to you for that. You can always comment on the YouTube video if you're watching us there, and you can always also email us at cocreationstation1111@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Each week we start our conversation here on Co-Creation Station from a different jumping off point. It usually arises quite naturally and effortlessly out of our friend, what Stephanie and I call our friend time, which is the half hour we spend on Zoom each week as friends before the podcast starts. And we actually, somehow we reenact how the podcast actually started every week now, because we were having our, early pandemic Zoom conversations as friends, and I was like, hey, this is a podcast. And then now that's what happens every week. We do friend time for 30 minutes, and then friend time doesn't officially end. Like, one of us starts to talk about things that would be the topic for the podcast, and the other person, which was in this case you this week, says, hey, stop talking, hit record, this is the podcast.
You were like, oh.
So
years there.
This week, I think we're talking about, might go different directions as always, but we're talking about the vortex, we're talking about faith in the vortex, faith in...
faith in general, like you were talking about the Dungeons and Dragons character you had created.
You said the name of the game properly, thank you.
And I was like, wait a minute, you need to pause and record because... So, what's the name of your character?
His name is Death, D-E-T-H.
And that is why Collin said Death instead of Red Treasure.
Yeah, I don't, and my apologies to people listening or watching. If you have no idea what Dungeons and Dragons is, I don't think I can do a very good explanation in brief. But in brief, it's a game that people play, but it's very different than board games and things like that. There's no winner. You usually continue playing each week. You play fictional characters in a fictional world. It's similar to a computer game, but it's not played on a computer. It's played just in people's imaginations, really. And so what I was talking about was I have this character named Death, who I won't say accidentally, but my intention was not to create this character. It was to create a different character, but because of what was going on with the strangers that I was going to play with, I ended up creating him for our little adventure. And in the fictional world, his name, D-E-T-H, does not mean death. It's like a Brad or whatever, but because he's from a different sort of species. But anyway, his personality is very different than this fictional character's personality. Is very. I'm now starting to get a little worried. This is going to make me seem like a multiple personality disorder or schizophrenia.
Oh no, I was going to say just the opposite. Like that not all of the qualities of your character you're not all the exact opposite of his.
Yes, I'm not slaughtering creatures or anything like that. But
or like you said, I'm like more cautious and just kind of.
Yeah. So this character death. So if for some bizarre reason someone listening to Co-Creation Station or watching actually is into Dungeons and Dragons, he is a 5th level half orc, and I forget his class. He's multi-classed. He's a warlock paladin. So what I was telling you, Stephanie, in friend time was that I ended up creating him with a very different personality than I have, and he's far more decisive. He's far more confident in his decisions, and he gets to decisions very quickly, and acts on them typically. And he is a team player, but he has a short fuse of how long of nerdy overthinking he's willing to tolerate before he has to go do something about it.
You said 10 seconds. Like 10 seconds, and then he's off.
I mean, it's probably varies depending on the scenario, but it's never long. It's like, you have 10 seconds to do your planning of how we're going to attack this dragon or whatever, but at the end of the 10 seconds, I'm charging right for its chest with my,
And that's what happens. You charge, and then the rest of the characters are like, forego the plan. Just
they have 2 choices,
Yeah. Either go charging ahead and fight, or turn around and run.
Yeah, so, probably we have no gamers listening, but if we have any gamers listening, it's a delayed Leroy Jenkins thing, and the gamers will understand that. What I was telling Stephanie and how this all does relate to the law of attraction and the art of allowing, we swear, is that what I'm noticing, because when you play Dungeons and Dragons, it's typically like a 4 or 5 hour session. And you're playing this fictional character for a long time, and if you really want to role play it, well, and have fun with it, you really have to be like an actor and try to get into this, fictional role and play it, And so, Death is way more decisive than I am. He's way more courageous. He's in terms of like physical fears about things, and he's a man of few words and strong action. And what I've learned from playing him is that, because my fear with him was that he was going to die very quickly.
Really? Okay.
Because he was going to make a lot of snap decisions, wouldn't think it through, and it wouldn't go well. Because there is this idea, and I think this relates back to real life, thank God, that if you think about something enough, if you plan something enough in your logical mind, you can control the results into working out exactly how you want, right? And so this is what,
and we actually believe that.
Yeah, and with nothing but love for all of my fellow Dungeons and Dragons players and dungeon masters around the world. Typically, like you're going through a dungeon or something, and you see you find like a hint that something terrible is around the next corner or in the next room or over the hill or whatever. And what typically happens is the 6 nerds playing start, bouncing ideas off each other. And it is a great exercise in teamwork and cooperation, all that sort of stuff. But what I'm seeing through the lens of playing Death is like, oh my God, does it go on forever?
So it's almost like, was the saying, paralysis?
Analysis paralysis, yeah.
And so many of us live that way, right?
Right.
Like we don't take actions.
That's what's so bizarre is like for me, as the careful introverted Virgo, to be the guy who's like, enough talk, now we fight, and I just run, It's a very, at first it was very uncomfortable to play that because I'm the guy that's like, no, let's talk more. Let's plan this out more. I mean, this looks really bad. We need to be like over prepared. And what I've found through the game, and of course it's fictional, the whole thing is fiction, but I think there is a parallel, which is that he, not only has he not died,
which is very interesting.
Like
you
things,
thought he would.
A lot of good stuff that wouldn't normally happen, wouldn't otherwise happen, happens. Like his decisiveness
so life.
and his strong decision making usually lead to really good outcomes, and he accidentally, I have no intentions. Most nerds are fully capable of like just trying to take over a group of nerds, like, because a lot of us are very convinced that we're right about everything. And so I'm very aware of that. I try to keep that in check as much as I can, because it's very important to me that everybody have a good time and nobody feel dominated or shut down or whatever. So I don't go into any D&D session like I'm going to be the leader of the pack. But what I've noticed in playing Death is he accidentally becomes a leader because his decision making is so strong, and the results are so positive that people after a while are just like, well, we followed him last time and it worked out great, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, and
that
people,
is so like evidence, right? It's something.
And people start to overthink less. The group starts to overthink less because he demonstrates that it is. I feel like it really is a good parallel. It's like, look, this is like we're in a dangerous thing. Like, this is the next thing probably is terrible. Preparation is important. But like, if we sit here all day, we could definitely be making it worse instead of better. Like, there's a point where we got to say, okay, we got a plan. It ain't perfect, but it's what we got, and we're gonna go, and we're gonna adjust on the fly, and that's what you end up having to do anyway. You know. Yeah. So I've just sort of realized. So you said, "Oh, doesn't that sound like the vortex?" Meaning,
you said the word faith, which blew my mind, because when I brought up faith the few times I have in the episode, you're like, that's religious and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wait a minute, faith? No, faith, why do...
Well, I think it's important to use the words faith and trust, because I do think...
And I did say that, faith and trust, and you were like, yeah, but faith is religion and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not being religious here. It's just like...
You know, to quote Tucker's character in the very wonderful film Friday, why you gotta bring up old shit? Like,
because you gave me so much shit about it the couple of times I brought it up.
That's fair.
That's why.
That's fair.
But when you use the word faith, it rang like beautiful music in my ears, because I think faith is a great word. And probably a couple decades ago, I would not have thought that. But in the past 5 years, and 2 and 3 especially, I've come to realize, like, I need to have faith. Like, I need to have faith that my higher power is always working on my behalf. I want to have so much faith that I just don't worry anymore. Like, that's just not a thing, because I know, like, my inner being, the vortex, it's got a bunch of good stuff, and, you know, all those things. And so when you said faith, I was so happy, because I'm like, he just said the word faith. Yeah. And I thought that's, you know, building that muscle, because I think of them all as muscles now, right? Like the belief thing is a muscle. Faith is building a muscle. Anything doing something new is we're just building a muscle. Like, oh, that muscle is weak. I'm just going to make it stronger by practicing it. Like my meditation, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, especially like walking through this life-changing experience I'm having recently, I can see where the practice of meditating daily has served me well. You know, I was sharing with you in friend time, I had something come up this week, and when I read it, I immediately knew within every fiber of my being, I am not signing this.
Yeah.
And I really, truly believe, like, if I wasn't someone who meditated regularly, I might have had like a small inkling of that, or just been like, because I would always hear clients say, you know, I didn't listen to my gut.
Yeah. No, I've heard so many people, you know, you're talking about a legal document, and I've heard so many people, I mean, celebrities, you know, like in the music world. There's a very famous, what is it? Not In Sync, but the band before that was famous before that. I want to say Backstreet Boys. Yeah, I guess it was Backstreet Boys. I think it actually happened to New Kids on the Block, and then like 10 years later, it happened to the Backstreet Boys, where there was this producer in Florida who was like putting the auditions together and assembling the group. And he was also like an expert on music law. So he would rig the original contract completely in his favor. It was completely unfair. Like
That's
for
horrific.
40 years, he would get like 90% of all, whatever.
Oh,
You can, there's documentaries about that guy. You can look it up on YouTube, but,
thank you.
But he knew that he had like these young kids that just wanted to be stars and do their thing, and like that they would not read, that neither they nor their parents would read a legal contract that was like 45 pages long and single space and $10 words all through it. Yeah. But I've heard stories like that, and also people in my personal life where people are like, yeah, man, when that lawyer put that document in front of me, even not reading it, I had a feeling in my gut that I shouldn't sign it.
Oh, wow.
But I just didn't know what to do, so I signed it. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I made in my life. Yeah. So I mean, I think when you said, well, isn't talking about my D&D character, like, isn't that the vortex? I think what I'm experiencing is that it's trust. Like, he just trusts that everything's going to be fine, and that includes like things not going his way, like
I like that too.
Like, I mean, because one of the things I realized was in coming back into playing D&D is like when that over planning that happens when you find the hint, like, oh no, there's a really bad monster around the next corner.
Can anybody relate to this over planning, or overthinking things?
I think that's a really awful message in our culture. Like, there's a grain of truth in it, but it's like a lot of things that gets warped in the message, which is like, again, a reasonable amount of planning is good.
I think preparing is absolutely, and I would like to think that meditating first thing in the morning is preparing, is for my day to go better than if I didn't.
But to stretch it out like our culture tends to, that you can actually control results and be in total control of your life, meaning you're actually controlling the results of everything by just planning and planning and planning more and working harder on the plan. That is completely misguided. And
that's taking a good thing and just making it. What that whole thing is like, oh, well, if something's good, more is better, and more is not always better.
There's a well-known saying in the military world that like, and I forget exactly how it goes, but it's like, every great military plan lasts until the soldiers meet on the battlefield. It's like you need a battle plan, but then you need to like adjust constantly. Like, you can't.
Which I think your character does, right?
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. And what I realized is like the fear, and it's funny that these are fictional characters in a fictional world, but you put so much into it that you get scared of that character dying not at the level of your own real life, like you understand it's a fictional character, but like people really don't want their character to die. So at least for me, when I get into the over planning, that's part of it. It's like, well, how do I prevent my character from dying? Mm-hmm. And I think what this character Death understands, which I had to create him to get in touch with that knowledge, is that this is a deadly environment. Like, we're people with axes and swords fighting big monsters. Like, death is an option. Like, it's one of the possible outcomes, and if we're gonna like try to over plan to avoid that, to try to control the result of it not being that, we're gonna miss out on the fun.
Why do you think people are afraid of death?
Well,
are you afraid of death?
I think I've gotten down to like 7%. It was one of my biggest fears for a long time, which it is for a lot of people. I think I'm down to about 7% of my old thing. I think people are afraid of death because of how we're taught, especially in America at least, which is the only country I've ever lived in, how we're taught to think about it, which I think is completely messed up. Which is that, if you're apart from a religious community, the way our just overall cultural thinks of it is that this is it. Like, your time from when you're born till you die is the only time that you exist ever in any form whatsoever. And
is that more of an atheist point of view?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because it leaks into the religion when you get into the 20th century. Like, there's people who are terrified to die that, like, supposedly they go to a church every Sunday where they're told, like, you're going to have this amazing eternal life as soon as you die.
Right. Yeah, okay.
But then people are scared to death to die. So it's like, are you really believing that?
It's really interesting because I was always fascinated by people who have had near-death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember going to, I think it's called ND, National Association of Near-Death Experience.
Oh.
There's a local chapter here, and I knew the woman who had become like vice president or something, and we had recently met, so I went to a meeting. But the subject always fascinated me, and I remember thinking, I want to have an experience like that because I want to know what it's like. I've always heard really good things about people who have like almost died and then they've come back.
Mm-hmm.
And then one time I had this dream where I was standing in front of a beam of light. There's something in me said, just fall into it. And so I just like physically just kind of like fell into it. And then the next thing I knew, I was in this big warehouse room. It was all white. And I laughed because I'm like, my background's white. I've got a beige cream shirt on. Colin's like, "Guy, you're like, everything's white but your face." It's so funny. But so next thing I know, it's okay, sweetheart. And so I'm in this room, and I'm with my friends, and we're like working or something, and it was just like how it is here. It was just like that there.
Mm.
And so I almost feel like I had my own kind of experience in a dream.
Mm.
But I've met people who have had, and I think I shared that here recently, that I met someone a couple months ago who had, and he prior to that experience, he said he was afraid of dying.
Mm.
And then he had that experience. He was having surgery, and they said that he flatlined or something and came back, and he's like, I don't have that fear of death anymore. Wow.
It is
curious why people, are afraid to die.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
why were you?
To a certain extent, an overgeneralization, people could have 10 million reasons why they're afraid to die. But I mean, I feel like the general theme is just that we get attached to our, in this life, earthly ego-based identities. Is
that why you were?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think there was this idea of like, well, yeah, there might be some. Earlier in my life, I thought, yeah, there might be some afterlife, but I'm not going to be me there. I'm going to be some sort of angelic, weird, all light form of me or something, some sort of me with wings or something. And so I won't get to do the things whatever that place is and whatever happens there, I'm not going to get to do the things I do here in this life, like that. Like,
and isn't that funny? Yet that's what I just said when I had the dream of falling in. I go, it's just like it is here. I was doing stuff with my friends. It was no different.
It's weird to me. I'm running the risk of throwing the entire world of organized religion under the bus here, but I don't mean any judgment against people that are involved in it. But it is interesting that like you would think, number one, that if you believed in a beautiful afterlife, which most religions do, that number one, you wouldn't be afraid of death. And yet most people that are really religious are still really afraid of death. And that it would focus you in spending your life in a good way. But a lot of people who believe in that afterlife very strongly, are really ready to die quickly. Like people do suicide bombings and things like that because they're like, well, there's an afterlife. And it's like, well, I don't think the purpose of the afterlife was for you to just like do something stupid to get there really fast. Like I think, we're given this time on this earth for a reason, and that's the mystery, right? Like there's no way anybody can prove logically beyond the shadow of a doubt anything about our spiritual nature, whether we're eternal or, temporary, whatever, So, I mean, everybody kind of has to make this decision for themselves. But I just feel like if you really pay attention to your feelings as you look around the world, I'll give you another gamer reference. There's a really great group of actors in Australia, and they're professional actors, and they also play video games constantly, all of them. So they made up this whole series, and they've done hundreds of episodes now where they're just making fun of all the video games they play. And they play... like basically they each become like a computer generated character, and then they do something, and but they're actually people, and they play off that with comedy. And there's this one which I didn't get it at first, and then I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. And it's one guy in a forest clearing, and he just keeps picking things up. Like he picks up a rock, and he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then he goes over and picks up a leaf, and he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then he goes over to like a tree, and he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And what they're making fun of is the fact that the people that created this video game that this guy's in went to all this crazy computer code, brilliant, graphics and stuff to make a world that was so fascinating. But it's like, you have that outside your door. It's like, why did you spend $59.99 and are sitting at a desk to look at a rock that you could go outside and look at a real rock?
And I always say that, like, anybody who believes that there isn't something greater than us that created all things. I mean, look at flowers. Like sometimes I'll pick a flower. I think the passion fruit flower, it looks like a jellyfish. It just, every color and the shapes and that's just one flower. And there's multiple, like there's hundreds of thousands, I don't know how many, just plants and flowers. And that's just flora. Like, yeah, it just blows my mind.
I mean, you and I have talked, I don't think we've talked about it on the show, but you and I mentioned to you that Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astronomer physicist, he led a panel discussion at the Museum of Natural History in New York City several years ago now, but it's on YouTube if you want to look for it. And basically he brought in several high-level scientific experts to discuss, is the reality we live in a computer simulation of some kind? Mm. And the most fascinating what disturbed me was everybody except one of the panelists was like, absolutely. I'm like, I thought it would be like 3 yes, 3 no. Like, but there was one there. But here's the thing. The one person who was like, she doesn't believe that we are living in a computer simulation, but that's not her main point. Her main point is, what does it matter? And I think that's about that to me, because it's like, if you're in a computer simulation, and however you think about that, if you have something from your organized religion that you believe deeply, that says the creative force, whatever that is in your book of religion, created you and put you here, whatever. Whether or not that's true, it's like, wouldn't you rather make the most of it? Like, wouldn't you rather like have a good time, help other people have a good time? Like, wouldn't you rather enjoy your life and do fun things and and if it's just a video game, then whatever, who knows what happens when the video game ends, but the video game ends and then you do something else wherever you are. But if it's not, wouldn't you still want to live life the same way? Like, even if this were your only, you're not a spirit, you're just this bag of bones wrapped up in skin, and this is your only rodeo in all of history, all through time. But I mean, wouldn't you still want to get the most out of it? Wouldn't you still want to like be happy and help other people be happy? And the fear of death, I think, the value of knowing you're going to die, I think, is, at least for me, is helping me understand that each day, each moment, each hour is precious, like that it's important to a certain degree. And that's good. But the danger of it is either you're so scared of it that you just, you're constantly arranging your whole life to avoid it, so you avoid life instead of, participating in it.
And then you die anyways.
Or you're so eager to experience like the afterlife that you just strap some dynamite to your chest and blow up a town square.
That's kind of extreme, but it does. But I mean, that's not the majority. Yeah. No. But it goes back to that whole, and I had said it earlier when I was writing notes down when you were talking about death, DETH, your character is the flow and being in the present moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's really about right now. Like, what am I doing right now to help myself feel better? Like, what am I doing right now? What are the thoughts that I'm thinking right now? And are they serving me? And do they feel good? Do they not? Like, what am I focused on? Because whatever I put my attention to is going to grow.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. I think I'll talk about myself, like, especially before I learned about all this stuff, I would just worry so often. I would spend so much of my mental time
And I do sometimes too with particular things. I'm just like, what
Oh,
are
really?
you doing, Steph?
I feel sorry for you. I got cured. I don't worry.
Well, you need to tell me. I didn't hear that pill.
No, but yeah, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say.
My apologies.
It's totally blank.
That's okay. I did that earlier in friend time, and it was awesome. As I'm sure yours was too. Well, that's going to wrap us up today, people.
As I suspected, we kind of went all over the place. The title for this one is not.
I know. I'm like trying to. I'm when I'm listening to us. I'm like, oh, what should this title be? And now I'm like, I was so in that. I thought about it for a second. I have no idea.
Quick recap: we talked about Dungeons and Dragons, faith. Is all human life a computer simulation?
Death, DEATH.
Afterlife,
Fear.
organized religions. Yeah, we covered a pretty wide berth.
So then what would you say the great title for this one would be? Help a girl out.
I don't know, something about like letting go of your fear of death and just participate.
Fear is bullshit. I think we'll do that. We'll take Kelly's. What did she say?
The thing about
parents bullshit.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole other episode about fear because I don't want to give people. I kind of hate it when people make a blanket statement that all fear is bad and you shouldn't have it.
Oh gosh, no.
Because there is
it's natural.
Yeah, but we can do a whole other episode about that.
Yeah.
So don't title it.
That's that mentally fear that screws us.
For that episode.
No.
Which I guess we'll have later.
Oh, I'm so glad we ended with laughter for me.
I
haven't laughed in a few days, so this is great.
Okay. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening to us. If you listen to the audio version, thanks so much for watching. If you watched on YouTube, also thank you so much for liking this episode, following us, subscribing to us, and or reviewing us, whatever your platform allows. Again, just quick reminder, please leave us a comment if you had a reaction.
I love when you guys comment. It's awesome.
And and you can also always email us at cocreationstation1@gmail.com. If people want to find information about you and get in touch with you via the interwebs, Stephanie, how can they?
Powerinjoy, POWERINJOY.com, and also on Instagram, the same name. I look forward to hearing from you. Chatting.
And as long as it's sort of within the first half of the 21st century, you can reach me on Instagram, which again, for the people far in the future, was a social media platform. You probably know that. At Collin_Daniels_Worster. Collin has 2 L's. Worster is WORSTER. And it feels like Death should get his own animated series, so I'll let you know when that comes along. Teach you how to let go of your fear of death. Ironically. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We wish you a wonderful, happy, prosperous, love-filled week, and we'll see you next time on Co-Creation Station.